About different genders and sexual selection, by Anatoly Protopopov. Since old fellow Darwin, it is common to believe, partially against his opinion, that natural selection is based on casual, spontaneous death of creatures which are not adapted enough to living conditions. Such selection together with variability was called evolutionary force. Meanwhile, this way of selection is very inefficient. The man himself acts with far greater efficiency selecting new breeds of animals and plants. He achieves results in a few generations rather than in hundreds of thousands of years. The essence of such selection is to choose deliberately the parents of initial species, who carry the desired properties and disallow a reproduction of another beings without such properties. Actually, there is no need to kill these outsiders. What humanism? Besides, a chance still remains to correct judicial mistake if this is going to occur. Obviously, the usage of the same selection methods by nature itself can accelerate the pace of evolution and thus improve the ability of the species to adapt to ever-changing environmental conditions. However, how can nature implement this in reality? It needs to have some kind of judge, making the decisions of who deserves and who does not. The easiest way is to apply a hypothesis of God's existence, but this is a way to avert the answer. It is acceptable that this judge is not alone. The most important is that they all should judge more or less by the same laws. And there are a lot of judges, and they are named female. They pass a verdict which males will last in descendants and which will not. That's why such selection is called sexual. It is interesting that Darwin himself paid great attention to sexual selection, but this did not find the proper response with the other scientists. Can there be a sexual selection among hermaphrodites? Let us imagine a unisexual being which should have been rejected as sire. It is refused time after time, but finally after some refusals, it finds the same loser and they will agree some way. In the world of different sexes, one outcast male cannot help another one in bringing offspring, but there are no outcast females in the animal world because one male can mate with many females. And usually it is still far from the limit of its fertilizing productivity. Taking into account that the number of males in population usually equals the number of females, hence male fertilizing potentials are in extreme abundance, and it means that females always have more or less wide choices of a mating partner. This choice might be disguised or hidden, but nonetheless it always exists. Exclusion of females for the same purpose of selection from the reproduction process is too risky because their unborn cubs cannot be born by another female. A female gives birth by herself to as many offspring as she can and simply physically cannot substitute another female. A male is a different matter. All non-conceived cubs by one particular male will be conceived by another one with pleasure, and who would refuse? That's exactly how it happens in reality. The 1/6 seal males fertilize 5/6 of females, the others have to pretend that they do not need this at all. Even more extreme disproportions are known among sea lions, where 4% of males mate with 88% of females. The same picture is typical for all gregarious animals. Amongst the species which live in pairs, especially birds, it is customary to fertilize before a pair, family, is formed and sometimes after, but with another male, often in sight of a lawful husband. In other words, the pair is formed for doing household chores, but fertilization is often done under gregarious laws. Besides, males are born in slightly higher numbers than females, and the more males are born, the worse the living conditions for the species are. All this leaves room for choice even among strictly paired animals. Plants, even declinous ones, are not able to make such selection. That's why complete heterophylism in the floral world did not become dominant and probably remains as one of the ways preventing self-fertilization. Thus, gender differentiation assumes some explicit or implicit form of copulative polygyny, but the fundamental principle of dioecious propagation is the principle of females' irreplaceability. For accelerating selection and making it purposeful, some part of possibly potent males by all means will be excluded from reproduction process, with the growing share of the others. From the principle of females' irreplaceability follows the fundamental differences between males and females' behavior. As females are of a far greater value for the population and males are born in significantly higher numbers than needed to sustain specimen reproduction, thus, their personal value for the species is far lower. This circumstance is fixed in appropriate instincts which require from female to be more careful, avoid risk, take care of themselves in the first place and demand caring from surrounding people. For example, it is well in line with this instinct that women are more egocentric and trust more intuition and feelings than logic. Intuition and feelings are based on practical experience, including the experience of a whole species, so they are proved with practice and considered to be something more reliable.